Hi, I'm Linda Willow Roberts with another episode of How to Manifest. And today I'm really excited. We're talking to Josie Thomson from Brisbane. And Josie is a multi-award winning coach, speaker, trainer, and author. She's been awarded International Gold Stevie Award, Maverick of the Year twice, Women in Business Coach and Mentor, and a finalist in the Telstra Business Women's Awards. And I'd like you to welcome Josie. Hi, Jose. How are you going?
Hi, I'm really well and so excited to be here, Linda.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on, because it's a great opportunity and it's a great platform to help people manifest and talk to just anybody that needs any help manifesting. Now, a few things. You're just some of the awards that you won is outstanding, and I know that you talk to lots of businesses and companies and help them manifest. But I wanted to know just a little bit about you first. You know, most spiritual leaders around the world that I've been talking to have come from challenges, and that's got them on the road to their spiritual path and what they wanted to do in life. So what was your early challenges that you went through is why that you've taken the path that you have done?
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. You don't know what you don't know until you're invited to learn it quick smart. And for me, it really happened, well, let me go back. In my childhood, I always felt like I was different, you know. Sometimes I felt like I didn't belong. I always felt the presence of, I would call her my guardian angel. And, you know, I'd even get on public transport and wouldn't let people sit next to me because my guardian angel was sitting beside me. And I'm sure people thought I was strange. And then I learned to just keep that stuff to myself, because every time I shared it, people would think, you know, there's something wrong with you. And I just wanted to fit in and belong, you know. So all of that kind of got hidden from the outside world, but always on the inside there was a little voice I was communicating with a lot. And I think it was grade 2, I came across my first image of Tutankhamun. And for some reason, it really stuck in me. There's something that just swelled up inside me, and this fascination with Egypt started to grow. And that's how we met in 2016, right? When we were both on that metaphysical journey through Egypt, which was extraordinary. But for me, for me, when I was 24, it was 1991, I was working in finance at a big multinational mining company, and I had this discomfort, physical discomfort in my throat. And I ignored it, as we do, for a while, and thinking it would just go away. But after about 2 months, it wasn't going away, and I could barely swallow. So I thought I'd better go and get it checked out. So saw a GP, had a little feel around and said, I think it's glandular fever, but let's do an ultrasound just to be clear. So he did an ultrasound and discovered that there was, in fact, a tumour in my thyroid. So we underwent a surgery pretty swiftly. He didn't bother with a biopsy because I was 24, super fit, never drank, never smoked. No one in the family had ever had any form of, you know, serious illness. And in those days, Linda, 1991, you barely heard the word cancer.
Yes, true.
But if you did, there was an automatic association to death. You know, there wasn't a lot of hope held for anyone with it. So anyway, I went in and had the surgery. The doctor said I'd only be in for about 24 hours. He came in at midnight, and I knew something was up. All afternoon I had these witchy feelings, and I actually said something to a girlfriend who came to visit. I said, what's a bet it's cancer? And I was kind of just sort of saying it in a very detached manner, and her reaction was quite profound. She got quite upset and said, don't say anything like that. And I said, well, I just don't know, you know. And then the doctor came in at midnight, and you could see that he'd been quite emotional. He clearly didn't know how to give me the information. And he said, Josie, I don't know how to tell you this, but it is cancer, and it is stage 3 and it is malignant. And I took it all in, and he said, do you understand what I'm saying? And I just nodded. I was just really quiet, just taking it in, not really sure about what it meant, right? And he said, so as a consequence, we need to have a second surgery pretty quickly because we've disturbed it and it will be spreading. So he said, when can we do that? And without even thinking, this voice came out of my mouth and it said, if you don't do it by tomorrow morning, I'm never going to let you touch me again. Oh. And what I knew was I didn't need time to think about it.
Yeah.
There was something that just said, act swiftly. So went in, had the surgery, flatlined twice in intensive care. And that was my experience with, they call it NDEs, near-death experience, where you physically have this sense of leaving your body. There's an awareness that is up on the ceiling looking down at your physical body, and it's so serene and so peaceful and so calm. And I was
calm, Josie.
Well, to be honest, it's not you, the physical, the ego up there. It's it's the soul, right? And I had no understanding or appreciation of this at all. I was definitely not spiritual at 24. I was very religious, but did not ever have a conversation about spirituality and soul.
Yes.
Right? And so I have this awareness of me there and me there. And it was really bizarre. There was no real active thought. There was no reaction. There was no emotion. It was bliss. It was tranquil. It was peaceful. Pure observation. And then all of a sudden, I heard this really loud male voice sternly command and say to me, it's not your time yet. And then I was back in my body. And that happened twice.
Yeah, right.
While I was out of consciousness, so I was in and out of consciousness for 2 weeks, I had only immediate family allowed to see me.
Yeah.
And they were having conversation. And even though I wasn't awake, as far as they were concerned, I heard every single conversation in the room. I was aware of everything that was said, who said it, and where in the room they were seated. And I was not consciously awake at all. It was profound what I learned. And that was actually the time where I realized there's something more to this experience called life than I was aware of.
Yeah, yeah, true. Wow, what an amazing story, and to actually experience it. Like my journey was, I always had a knowing, and I got the slaps from the universe. But in my really downtime, I felt something come in one night in bed and wrap their arms or wings, or it was way bigger than anything I'd ever felt before, and it was not of anything that had ever been in my human energy or knowledge. And that sort of shook me into, okay, you've got to go on this path. So is that what helped you, like getting over the cancer? Well, we know that you got over it, and you actually are a cancer survivor twice. Is that correct? Yeah,
that's correct. Yeah.
So
they gave me 6 months the first time.
Yeah.
And I remember when the doctor said that, and he actually handed me a piece of paper that said 6 months to live. And I remember looking at it, and then I looked at him and I said, how do you know that for sure? And I wasn't being arrogant. I was on this, like when you get news like that, you go into this instinctual fight, flight, freeze, right? And the brain seeks certainty. So it was a question to simply seek some certainty. And his answer didn't actually give me a sense of certainty. Yeah. And so I took the gap in the game and went, right, I'm making a decision. And my decision was, I'm going to fight to live. So I did a lot of research. I bought every book on cancer I could get my hands on, because this was in the era before internet. It's quite fun to say we're older than the internet, right? And And wiser, I think. But anyway.
Oh, a lot wiser.
So I sought to try to understand this disease. And what I came back to was an appreciation that whilst cancer is a physical manifestation, it does get affected by our mental and emotional experience. Our mental and emotional becomes physical.
Yeah.
And sure, there's genetics and environmental factors and lifestyle factors, but it's very much affected by the mental and emotional.
It is the disease in our body, isn't it, that brings up the emotion and creates the disease in our body.
So second time round, as you know, in 2010, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and this time I was actually studying neuroscience. I was completing my master's in neuroscience. So I knew a lot about the brain. I knew a lot about the neurobiology. I knew a lot about the interconnectedness of, certain chemicals and how they affected our functionality. And I knew that this was a really serious circumstance that I was in. What I really appreciated at this point was this inner inquiry I had commenced back in 1994 that had grown a lot bigger since now. So every day I meditate, and in my meditation I connect in with this energy source that, people can call by different names. You can call it God, you can call it, source. And for me, I connect in with that, and it's a profound source of wisdom for me. Yeah. And at this time, what I started to understand was that my body got sick when I wasn't paying attention to messages that I was being hinted at understanding. So the first time in the throat, that was all about speaking up and owning my voice, owning my truth. And until then, I really hadn't had permission, or hadn't granted myself permission to own it, because I was the eldest daughter of an Italian family. Duty and obligation was my middle name. You don't say no, you want to belong, you want to be accepted. So you kind of stifle that voice, and so my body got sick. And then in 2010, my whole thesis for my master's was about resilience and how to grow resilience through adversity. And when I studied the effect of stress, what I realized is there's healthy stress, and we need that, right? But when stress hits a tipping point where it starts to be perceived as a threat, and we feel like it's beyond our capacity, so it's got nothing to do with our capability. Once we hit that point of, I have no more capacity to handle all of these stresses, then it starts to manifest at a physical level as anxiety. And then if we're not careful, it starts to manifest as disease and becomes the physical. And so I started to get this appreciation that now, being here, so you can see there's a scar that starts here and it goes all the way around to the back of my head, and that's where they opened up and removed what they needed to remove. And what I learned from that particular experience was I had to stop analyzing my experience of life, and I needed to start feeling more with my heart. If someone asked me, Josie, how are you? I'd tell them everything that was going on in my life. I'd tell them about my work and my children and everything, but I'd never share from here. So that was an invitation to take
big difference.
My experience of life more from here than from here.
I often say to people, get out of your head and get back into your heart space, because your head is and the ego and the overthinking and overanalyzing and the stories that the head can make up. But when you go back into your heart center and you connect to your soul and your heart, that's where it really is, the alignment is, isn't it?
Absolutely. But we're not given an instruction manual about how this brain works. And if we're not careful, we're actually in the back seat. And the brain is actually leading, and the brain is primed for threat, and that's no way to live life. always in this heightened threat state, looking for, things that might threaten us in some way. What we want to do is get our hands on that steering wheel and really live much more consciously. But when adversity hits, it's an invitation to learn and grow and become a lot more conscious as a creator of our life experience.
Yeah, true. And you did that. So after that, is that when you became a speaker and you wanted to help people? And how did you manifest your career from then?
I had no idea that one day I would be standing on stages speaking to thousands of people at any time. But it happened almost accidentally. I got into, when I was working in the corporate world, this is when I actually got the cancer the first time. And I was curious about, when I went back to work, I became hypersensitive to fear because I'd known and experienced the ultimate. And I think a lot of people are quite fearful of death. I'm no longer fearful of death, having touched it, I guess, twice.
Yeah.
But when I went back to work, I was really sensitive to the energy of fear. And people were afraid to talk to me and to know how to talk to me. It's almost like they were not confident in terms of what they could say to me and even where to look, because I had this huge scar across my throat that you could not miss. And I wasn't going to hide it because it hurt. And so people would come up to me and they'd look at my neck and say, "Oh, Josie, how are you?" And I'd start to bend my knees to get eye contact and I'd go, "I'm fine, thank you." They were just there was so much trepidation about, how do I talk to this person now that I know she has cancer? They stopped touching me and hugging me, this fear of, maybe catching it, and it was a really strange space to operate in. It was very, very scary, actually.
Yeah, I would imagine it would be. Yeah. So how did the accident of you getting up on stage and helping people and helping people manifest, how did that happen?
So what happened was I shifted out of my corporate role into what I do now, which is essentially life coaching. I was curious about why people weren't changing even when it was life and death, right? So for me,
That's perfect. That's a big thing, isn't it?
People resist change because change to the brain is perceived as a threat. Even if the change is good, until it's proven, the brain goes, "Oh, I'm not sure of that."
Yeah.
Right?
And it is funny because change is only uncomfortable when you resist. If you go in the flow and go, okay, because I trust spirit 100%, that I live in synchronicity. And so I just go wherever spirit guides me to go. And so change and whatever happens is like me standing back watching a movie happen. I'm not, but sometimes I'm human and I get in there and react as well. Yeah.
But there must have been a journey for you to actually get to that point where you've surrendered and offered yourself to service. And so for me, it was definitely going through that first battle with cancer, learning what I learned and realized that there were so many more people that I could help to transform their lives. And what I realized is that the change has to occur here before it can occur out there. It's not the other way around. We actually create so much stress for ourselves thinking that we can control anything outside of us. The thing that we need to get mastery over is our inner world. And the only path to that is through, mindfulness meditation.
Oh, it is, isn't it? It's, you can't feel, see, I spent my first half of my years, and I have a very addictive personality, doing all sorts of wrong things, trying to fill that void from external sources. And it just doesn't work. Once you go within and you start unpacking the stories that you've told yourself or the conditioning from your parents or whatever, and you start unpacking, you make room for the love and the self-love and the unconditional love, and it just fills that void. You just don't have it anymore.
And I think there's a journey to get to that awareness or awakening, because until you hit something like, an adversity in your life, and it doesn't have to be as drastic as cancer, but once you hit adversity, it's an opportunity for you to grow. And one of two choices. You've got two choices. You either grow better or bitter. Now, you grow bitter when you resist, right? And you start arguing with your reality. It is what it is. You don't have to like it. But the only way you grow better is when you accept, yes, this is what's happening and I don't like it, but how am I being invited to grow now?
True.
What am I being invited to learn here?
Yeah. Yeah, like that was the thing that I've noticed in life, regardless of what I've gone through, I've opened my heart and I've stepped into still that love space. But if you don't, and I've watched other people, the bitterness and the hardness has been there. And you and I both know, because we love Egyptian archetypes and the stories, that at the end of your life, they weigh your heart against a feather. You need to have a heart as light as a feather. So you need to let go of all the hardened and all the heavy stuff.
And that's not an easy path, and it takes extraordinary trust and surrender to do that. And one of the greatest things that helped me is to realize that in this continuum of life and energy, there's really only two choices. There's fear or there's love. And if you're not operating in love, you are operating in fear. Fear contracts us. Fear contains us. Love is so expansive, and both of these energies are attractors.
Yeah.
So if you come from fear, you attract more fear. If you come from love, you attract more love. And we operate somewhere on this continuum. And what we need to do is at some point acknowledge that this is part of our design, but choose to operate from here.
Yes. Yep, true. Yeah, very true. So how do you mix and help manifest when you're going to different companies and you're talking to you're a speaker and you talk to them about manifesting? How do you combine your spirituality with the lay mind of business? Because I have lots of business conversations with different business people, and they go, I'm not into that. And I go, look, if you have gone to do a business deal and you have a gut feeling, do you follow it? And they go, yes. And I went, well, that's it. So how do you go speaking and combining the two, your analytical mind and your spiritual heart?
Yeah, I'm very, very, very spiritual, but I'm also extremely analytical, and I have the balance. What keeps me balanced and what enables me to go into the corporate spaces is you don't use the language of the spiritual to operate in that context. And the thing that I have, which is quite unique, is the science. So I've got the neuroscience that underpins everything that I talk about. So instead of calling it manifesting, when you go into a corporate, you're talking about long-term goals and plans, right?
Yeah.
And then the way that you start to develop your leadership capability, there's two types of leadership. There's transactional or there's transformational, right?
Yep.
Where we want to encourage people to grow and evolve and develop is into that strategic transformational space. In order to get there, they have to cultivate a connection to that wise inner voice within. Now, I don't go in there and call it spirit, because if I did that, they'd go, get out of here. We don't do that stuff.
Don't like that terminology.
And you can't even use the word intuition, right? And this is why last year in January, two co-authors and I published a book called The Wise Advocate. And that inner voice that we have inside us is the voice of the wise advocate. So finally, we've found a corporate acceptable term for the inner voice of strategic leadership. And strategic leadership is something that you can deploy in a professional setting, but also very much in a personal setting. So it's finding a language that allows you to be successful in the context within which you wish to operate.
Exactly. And, you've got to know your audience, don't you? Like when we use terminology, I don't talk about religion and I don't talk about politics when I'm doing these things, but, my boss is the creator, and I have lots of conversations, and it can be the source, the universe, spirit, whatever words that you want to use, but you need to know your audience to what keeps their ears open.
That's
Because
right.
the wrong word, they will shut down, and it's like walking through mud, isn't it?
Oh, it's hilarious. Like last month, for the month of April, with all this pandemic that's going on in the world, I decided to do a free month of mindfulness meditation practice every day at lunchtime and every evening, right? And the most engagement I got was on Saturday evenings. I had up to 350 people gathered for an online Zoom meditation practice with me for an hour. And I'd never done this publicly before. I do it with small groups and, friends and what have you, but I'd never done it online even before. And what I found was that, a lot of people were in isolation. They were craving connection, and they were also craving connection with something bigger than themselves that allowed them to feel a sense of assurance that they were going to be okay.
Yeah.
Right? And so this...
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think this is brought forward, that thinking of, gratitude for what we had, as it's raised the elevation of the planet, and people are thinking, there is something bigger out there.
There's something bigger out there, but there's something bigger in here too.
Yeah, that's right.
And our connection to that is actually within us. Yeah. And that took me a long time to actually accept, because, there's lots of spiritual books that say, you've got to get used to the concept of the fact that you are a spark of the divine, and that you are God. And I always had struggle with that. But then I realized that, this life force that lives within me is what is that spark of the divine. And I'm breathing that every day. And that is what I offer in my service and in my work every single day. So it's no longer about me. Every morning I say thank you for life. Every day at the end of the day I say thank you for life. And then I ask in the mornings when I do my meditation, how may I serve you today? How can I be of greatest service today? And I sit and I listen, and the voice tells me.
Yeah. And that's service, and that's the thing, even through, different situations, and I've said how some of the really bad situations I've been in, I've sat and I wrote gratitude lists, and more and more and more gratitude lists. And I really feel like that every time that I'm having a flat day or my energy's a bit low, my wave's out, I get online and I'll do a live feed on the Facebook page so that I'm put myself back into service.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And that's really what we've got to do. Josie, I think that your story is absolutely amazing. I love that you've come through it, but you've connected the dots, and that you know that it's within your heart space. I love that you get out there and that you help people. You as a person, I know, put yourself and you put others first, but you also are at a stage that you look after yourself. And I think that's really good. Don't roll your eyes, because you've got to keep doing it.
It's a constant battle, because my service orientation is so huge that sometimes I'm aware that I will give more outwardly than I'm actually giving to myself. But at the moment, with COVID the way it is, I'm meditating more than I ever have before, and really feeling that aliveness and connection more deeply than I ever have before. So it's been wonderful.
That's great. Well, I thank you very much for joining me. I hope that that everybody gets something, and I think they will, because I love listening to you talk. I love listening to your story. I like the both sides of you. I like the spiritual side and the analytical and science side, because that's really good. So thanks, Josie, very much for joining me on How to Manifest.
You're welcome.